Hey guys, it is Mr. Woodward, and today we are going to go over how to wire together a 7400 chip in Tinkercad. Now I already have my Tinkercad window open, and you'll notice up here I have already saved my file correctly as my last name and then the chip that I'm working on. A couple of other things to notice: I've already wired pin 14 to power, and I've already wired pin 7 to ground. Because it is a 2-input chip, input 1A, input 1B, and then output 1, I have 2 push buttons to correspond to each of my 2 inputs. And both of my push buttons are also running to power, meaning that whatever's in this row gets connected to whatever's in this row, meaning this row can be now connected to power. So let's go ahead and start connecting our inputs. So since this is push button 1, I'm going to run a wire over here to input 1. Similarly, I will run a wire here from push button 2 to input 2. And because I like using color, I'm going to change some colors around, and I'm going to say that the wires for this are going to, oh no, that doesn't look good. I'm going to change it to blue. So input A will always be green, input B will always be blue for me. So there are my 2 inputs. I now need an output, and our output wire, I'm going to make it, let's say, orange. And then you have to run your output to an LED. I always like to rotate my LEDs, but you don't have to. And in fact, I'll show you right now that you can wire them in like that. The important thing to recognize is that my output wire runs to the row that has the bent side or the anode of my LED. Coming out of the straight side of my LED, I'm going to run another wire, and I need to run it to a resistor because otherwise our circuit will overload. So there's our wire right there, and then I will run our resistor to ground. And since it's running to ground, I'll make it black, and I don't want to get that confused with my other green wires, so I don't know, let's make that one purple, I guess. Perfect. So let's go ahead and start our simulation. And we see our light bulb lights up, which makes sense. I'm sorry, I called it a light bulb. This is an LED. Makes sense that it lights up because this is a 7400. This is a NAND gate, meaning if our inputs are 0 and 0, the output is 1. And you can see as I click the buttons, bulb stays on, click the buttons, LED stays on. If I use shift, which is going to allow me to click both of them and they stay clicked, then the light turns off. Again, this makes sense because it's a NAND gate. 1, 1 for the inputs gives an output of 0. So I'm going to stop the simulation, and now we want to wire together our second input and output right here. I'm going to really quickly run a wire from this row, input 1A, to this row, input 2A. I'm going to do the same here because now input 1B is connected to input 2B, and then I want to run another LED coming out of here. So I'll use another orange wire, and I'll just run this one to here, just as long as it's outside of the circuit. I'll make it orange again. We'll put another LED in, and then I need to make sure that the straight side runs there. I'll make it purple. And let's start the simulation again. And now both lights are lighting up. I'm going to check the logic again. And they're working together. Perfect.